Welcome, Generals, to Distress Call. This is Ultimate General Civil War with version 1.28.3 of the J&P Mod. I'm playing as the Union on Major General difficulty with the default game configuration settings. There have been some changes since 1.28 released in the summer of 2022. It's good practice to take a quick look at the mod changelogs whenever you install the latest version. PandaKraut also updates a Google Docs mod guide that should reflect the current game mechanics and has a lot of information. I'll put a link to it in the video description below so you can reference that at any time. I'm not going to go into all of the changes and bug fixes here, but here's a few of the bigger ones. The battle's lead bonus now goes up to 10 rather than 4, though the maximum benefit's still the same. Training now gives experience to the officers of units that do not deploy to battle. Previously, only the soldiers in the unit gained training experience. A charging unit now applies a morale regeneration penalty to enemy units that are not charging or in melee. Enemy units that are moving, such as trying to get out of the way, will incur an even higher penalty. Artillery can now flip 180 degrees instantly like every other unit type, so they can fire behind them. And the game now has a static mode. Forefall has an Iron Man campaign on YouTube in static mode for when it was in testing. As you know, the game has always had some type of scaling mechanic where the AI force at a battle is based on your army size and composition. With static mode, the AI unit sizes are set to a default value based on the date of the war. The player can build units that are up to 100% of the size of the AI and cannot go larger than that. Although in Forefall's campaign, the default was 80% at the time. So rather than the usual max size of 2,000 to 3,000 infantry in first camp, you can see that the max is capped at 1,680. You will still have to have your points in AO to reach the cap. So to make the max artillery battery of 14 here, you would need 3 in AO. The configuration files can be used to change the defaults and the percentages. There are a few battles where the AI size has been set to larger than the default values due to the AI having so few units in the battle that there wouldn't be much of a fight at all if PandaKraut didn't exceed that cap or to force the AI to split. But those are exceptions to the norm and they still do not scale to whatever the player's doing. The idea behind static mode is simply allowing the player to build whatever they want without having to worry about scaling. Conceptually, static mode sounds great, but it's not a silver bullet. If you hate how scaling works in the regular game, don't jump into static mode thinking that it's going to cure all that. Some battles will be much more challenging in static mode. For example, as the Union, be prepared to fight about 30,000 CSA at First Bull Run, but some other battles like Shiloh and Secure River will be easier. In its current state, think of static mode more as a change of pace and a fun alternative than a cure-all. If you'd like to help improve static mode or the mod in general, feel free to join the Discord for the J&P Mod and provide PandaKraut with your gameplay feedback, suggestions, and certainly any bugs that you might notice. Typically, proposed revisions to the mod are added to test versions of the game that players can then download and play specifically with the purpose of providing feedback on how the changes are working. So getting into first camp, give me a chance to explain what I built here for Distress Call before any of you Puritans give me grief for giving all of my original officers artillery batteries. Starting out, I gave my Corps Commander the accuracy perk. Next, I put 1 point in economy and 1 in army organization. Other than this 1 point into economy and 2 that I will put into training after Shiloh, all the rest of my points will go into AO and recon all the way up to Gaines's Mill. I took Gibbon and the ordnance rifles with the reputation points. Right now I'm not the least bit worried about the morale penalty. Gibbon is in 1st Division Command. I hired Lomax from the Academy for 2nd Division Command. On a side note, in the current version of the mod, Gibbon is likely going to be the highest level Brigadier General that you have access to, including your avatar. So if you are intent on getting a Major General as fast as possible, then Gibbon is probably going to be your best bet and should hit Major General right around Gaines's Mill. Leaving my avatar in place is going to get me Major General at Malvern, so it's not a huge difference. I've disbanded Walton to give me a pool of vets to redeploy. I'm sure many of you are wondering why I replaced Scales and Loomis with Wagner and Brewster. Well, I want those two units, as well as any of their artillery batteries, to get their second star as fast as possible, ideally at Bull Run. I also want those infantry to get enough experience that I can add rookies up to 1,500 for Shiloh without losing their second star, and that is a heck of a lot easier to do with Wagner, Brewster, or Brooks in command. And it's pretty common for Brooks and or Brewster to pop into your academy for hire right after Philippi. Other than swapping Scales with Wagner, that unit remains the same, with the unit having 60 experience points now rather than the 50 that it would have had with Scales. After swapping Loomis with Brewster, I also swapped out the 55 Springfields with Mississippis, and I added vets to get them up to 1350. That gives me 58 unit experience rather than the 51 that I would have had with Loomis. Lepian and Braxton are both low-level colonels. One has Rebors, one has 55 Springfields. They have unit experience of 63 and 59 respectively, with 100% new recruits and no vets added. They should both get to 1 star at Bull Run if things go well, and I'm hoping that they can just bleed down without having to add any troops after distress call, but we'll see how it goes. Other than topping off Wood's battery with a couple of vets, he remains unchanged and has Napoleons with the horse perk and has 51 unit experience. Smoothbores level to the second star just fine without any accuracy bumps. Walton, Loomis, and Scales were all created with the 4-gun minimum, and then I used vets to add 6 more guns to each, since 10 is the maximum with the AO of 2 that I have right now. Walton has 59 unit experience. Since he has the highest unit experience for the artillery batteries, he gets the 6-pound guns because they fit my budget for now, and I'll swap them out later. With the 6-pound guns and the horse perk, he won't kill as much as the other batteries, so his efficiency stat will lag behind a little bit. However, the 6-pounder has the fastest fire rate, and reload cycles increase the firearm stat and provide a little bit of a bump to stamina. So those two stats will increase faster than the other batteries. So the overall unit experience gained won't lag behind all that much early on. For Loomis, I used the 4 ordnance rifles from Philippi, plus the 6 from rep points, so I didn't have to buy any. He has 50 unit experience in the shell shot perk. The rifled guns really need to take the damage perk to gain experience at a decent rate, or they will lag behind your smoothbores. Some players swear by the horse perk for their artillery, whether they're going to be smoothbores or rifles. If you want to go that route, then I highly recommend that you use smoothbores to level them up to the second star, and then just swap in your rifled guns when you give them the second perk. Strategy-wise, I'll be moving my smoothbores along with my infantry everywhere, but my rifles will be moving much less and firing from a distance. With the nerfs to rifled artillery damage in 1.28, I just feel like it's important to get all the damage and distance perks that I can from my rifled guns. So the opportunity cost for me is giving up the horse perk speed to get better damage on the rifles. Right after Shiloh, this battery will switch to 20-pound parrots with 2 stars, and it will be doing a lot of counter battery work moving forward. Scales has Napoleons. With getting 4 from Philippi, I had to buy 6 more to get him up to 10. He also has the horse perk and 50 unit experience. So why am I so focused on artillery early when melee cav is the king of stopping charges and advancing your army forward quickly in battle? It's mainly because cav are expensive as hell, so it's difficult to afford more than 1 good unit at the start of the campaign. And if you use them a lot, the casualties start to pile up and their condition can become an issue. And if I'm being 100% honest with myself, giving me melee cav early on is like giving a brand new motorcycle to a 16-year-old the day that they get their license. I'm too irresponsible and something bad's probably going to happen. In the early game, putting Walton's vets into artillery batteries is the safest place for them. Artillery batteries rarely have issues with condition, and up through Shiloh, focused fire with artillery on charging AI units works well enough. Melee cav will come into their own when I can better afford them, Some players create entire cores of carbine and melee cav. I won't go quite to that extreme, but later in the campaign I'll be leaning heavily on a pistol cav to route units and then charge them as they route. Early on, I refrained from making a cavalry unit at the first camp for a few reasons. For one, horses in 1.28.3 cost double of what they did before, although the discount from economy does apply to buying them. Second, you don't have any appreciable quantity of cav weapons in your armory, so you have to buy everything from the shop. And third, if you're going to give them a bunch of vets to try to rush them to the second star, cav vets are the most expensive ones you can buy. So with horses, weapons, and cav vets all being expensive, you can easily blow half your money or more on just one single cav unit. You can see on screen that even with 4 in economy, palmettos and carbines are $39 each. Even if I reuse Walton to avoid more officer cost, it's $14,000 just to make a minimum size unit. Now if I want to add a bunch of vets and get large enough to be effective at stopping charges, and try to get up to 2 stars as quickly as possible before Shiloh, it's going to be another $46,000. So I've reused an officer, and it still took $60,000 total of my $108,000 bankroll, which is 55% of my funds going to that one single unit. I'm going to get around 400 carbines at distress call based off from having 4 in reconnaissance from my allied units, and possibly even more depending on whatever the AI brings to the battle. So it's much more affordable to wait until after the distress call to make a cav unit, because then I don't have to buy any weapons as I'm going into Bull Run. With that said, I plan to make a 1-star carbine cav and 1-star dedicated skirmisher after distress call to take into Bull Run. And with 3 in AO, I'll be able to add 2 more guns to both Loomis and Scales. Therefore, I'm not using all of my vets right now, so I'll have enough left over to do that after this battle. So there's 484 vets still in the pool. Lastly, I put 5K into supply. I'm not taking more because I don't want to spend any more funds, and I'll try to steal the AI supply wagon. Let's talk about the intelligence service information that appears on the battles map screen before we move into core deployment. Many people call this the recon report, but just to be clear, it has absolutely nothing to do with your recon career points. Have you ever had one campaign where things started out fine and then another campaign within the same difficulty level and it was a nightmare and you started seeing 2 and 3 star enemy units very quickly? Odds are, if you went back and looked at the intelligence service information, the difference in those 2 campaigns could be seen right here. For years, I just glossed over this information and ignored much of it. I felt that I couldn't do anything about it, so what was the point? However, since 1.28 launched last summer, Panderkraut has opened my eyes to the significance of this information. In a very real sense, this report influences the difficulty of your individual campaign within the difficulty level that you're playing. As I said in the Philippi video, there is a base default for each individual AI unit in every battle. Those defaults determine the unit size, the weapon that's assigned, and the unit's experience level, and of course that also affects how many perks the unit has. Again, the defaults are assigned to each individual unit and change from battle to battle. So even if you see a unit of the same name in back-to-back battles, they can have very different sizes, weapons, and unit experience. From a player perspective, you expect to see continuity because you have continuity in the army that you're building. But from the AI perspective, every unit is new and unique for each battle, even when they have the same officer names. But generally speaking, the default size, experience, and weapons quality of the AI units will improve as you progress through the war. Assuming that we've not changed any of the values in the game configuration files, there are a few game mechanics that will modify a unit's default values so that what you see in battle is something other than the defaults. They are scaling, the intelligence service reports, and then any variance checks. Scaling is the only modifier that reacts to decisions made by the player. The other 2 modifiers are more random and not related to player decisions. Scaling and the intelligence reports are applied at the same time, and then variance is done right after. So I'm going to attempt to explain each one of these in that order. Most of you know what scaling is and have a general idea of how that works. I'm not sure anyone really knows all the little nuances that influence scaling from battle to battle, but an oversimplified explanation is that the AI calculates the player's average size of each unit type and then scales the size of its corresponding unit types up or down from the default value. So if you maximize the size of your infantry, scaling will cause the AI to do the same. Likewise, if you don't have any cav in your army, and the AI has cav at a battle, then you can cause the AI cav to be of minimal size. Some battles scale differently than others, or they don't scale at all. Starting with version 1.28 of the mod, if the AI doesn't have a certain type for a particular battle, there are instances where it will just scale its infantry instead. So if you decide to bring a zillion cav and dedicated skirmishers to a battle where the AI doesn't have any of those unit types, it'll just modify what it has for its infantry. There is also an additional scaling bonus when a player's largest infantry unit is 2,000 men or greater than the player's average infantry unit sizes. So if you decide to make 10 infantry that have 1,500 men each, and then make 2 big monster melee units of 6,000 each, the mod will recognize the size difference and give the AI another bump up in scaling. The second modifier that gets applied to the default values along with scaling is the information from the intelligence service reports. I'm going to use a kind of goofy analogy here, but it'll help get my point across. Let's pretend that you step onto a digital scale and it has lost all reference to kilograms and pounds. It just says that you weigh 1,567 units. We don't know where these units come from, and we don't know what they would be in kilograms or pounds. However, what we do know is that if you weigh yourself in another week, and the units have increased, then you know that you've gained weight. And if the units have gone down, you know that you've lost weight. So the change in units is relative to changes over time. And that's how you should look at the numbers that are in the intelligence service reports. The numbers displayed here are not the actual size of the AI army, not the size of the entire Confederate army, and they are not the number of troops that are going to be at the next battle. These numbers are not exact figures. You can think of them as calculated estimates based on information collected by your spies. These numbers exist for the sole purpose of communicating additional modifiers to the AI army size, experience, and weapons quality that can be added to the default values. When these numbers go up, modifiers to the defaults go up, and when these numbers go down, modifiers to the defaults go down. Even if it were somehow possible for all these numbers to be zeros for army size, training, and armory, and we were going into Gettysburg and the AI default values for Gettysburg were 100,000 troops, mostly 3 stars and carrying Richmond rifles, then that is exactly what you would face in that battle. They just wouldn't have any additional modifiers from the intelligence reports. As the player, we don't know the AI's default values for total army size, experience, or weapons. We can only see the direction that the modifiers are trending and how quickly they are scaling on this screen. These modifiers will gradually increase over the course of the war, with at least a minimal bump up after each grand battle. However, they can quickly increase based on the correspondence messages that pop up after each battle. There will always be at least 2 correspondence messages, and there can be 3. The top message is usually an enemy officer complaining about the dire situation and that you're kicking his butt, and it doesn't mean anything. We're really looking at the second and third messages. There are several different types of messages that can appear in that second and third slot. One type is any message that says a large number of new recruits are being sent to reinforce the enemy. New recruits will increase the AI army size, but will not increase training or armory percentages. This is the least worrisome of the messages. The next type of message is any that says an entire corps has been sent to reinforce the AI. This message always increases the AI army size and may or may not increase training or armory percentages. PandaKraut says that this message and the new recruit message might actually be the same thing. If you happen to get this message for core reinforcement and see that training or armory increased from the previous side battle without getting any of the other messages that can affect training or armory, please let me know in the comments below so I can verify a couple of things. You'll see these core reinforcement messages a lot as the war progresses. The only time this type of message starts to be concerning is when the army size is displayed in either yellow or red. Yellow means that the AI army is now 30,000 men over the minimum size that can be at this point in the war. Red means that the AI army is 60,000 men over the minimum size that it can be at this point in the war. The result of being yellow or red is that it will apply an additional small bonus to AI scaling. The only remedy for this issue is to capture or kill more AI units in battle. Captures result in more men being removed from the AI army count. Any troops remaining from a shatter will stay in the army count. So if you can't capture them, it's best to kill as many as you can by whittling them down to nothing. Full clears are harder to accomplish in this version of the mod, but if you can get a few full clears in a row or close to it, especially on major battles, you can see the army size bonus drop and go back to being white. Another type of message is any that indicates that fresh supplies are being sent or that a shipment has made it through a blockade. This type of message will increase the armory percentages, giving the AI units better quality weapons. If you are relying on recon heavily to boost weapons recovery like I am, this message is kind of a good thing since I can collect better weapons after the battle. However, depending on when this message appears, it can be the difference between the AI using heavy rifled guns and wreaking havoc on your smoothbores from its counter battery operations versus the AI using something a lot less destructive. You will also see messages that tell the AI to focus on training, or that somebody will be sent to the AI army to train them. This type of message will immediately increase unit experience and the number of perks. This message will not affect army size or armory percentage modifiers. Getting this message repeatedly over the course of a few battles in the early part of the campaign will greatly increase the AI unit experience. The last type of message is any that indicates a certain number of veterans, crack troops, or our best troops are being sent to reinforce the AI. This type of message will increase all three factors: army size, training percentage, and armory percentage, all at the same time, although it likely will not increase them as much as the other messages can at one time for an individual category. For example, a veteran reinforcement may increase army size by 5 to 10,000 and then boost training and armory by 5 to 10%, whereas a recruit or core reinforcement, a training-related message, or a weapons message can boost any one of those categories by more than twice that. Just like the training-related messages, getting the veteran message repeatedly over a short time will greatly improve the number of AI vets in battle. Just to give you an idea of how quickly these messages can affect the AI army in battle, I'm heading into Distress Call. Obviously, it's only the second battle of the campaign. The AI brigades of Law and Ransom are normally 2-star units at Distress Call and Major General. However, if the intelligence reports after Philippi included one telling the AI to focus on training, and the other saying that veterans were being sent to reinforce the AI, both Law and Ransom would have a very high probability of being 3 stars instead of 2. Likewise, if I just see the veteran message appearing, I would expect some of its 1-star units to be bumped up to 2 stars. Sometimes the intelligence reports numbers get referred to as a snowball. The AI army is going to get bigger, better trained, and have better weapons over the course of the war, just like the player units. Snowball is going to be in motion, and the intelligence reports give you an idea of how fast the snowball is building. In previous versions of the mod and in the base game, you could slow the snowball down so much that the end game became no challenge. Since 1.28 makes full clears more difficult, it's harder to affect the snowball that drastically. With that said, just as full clears can start to lower the AI army size, Those full clears also deteriorate the AI veterans and the quality of weapons. So full clears can lower both the training and armory percentages along with the army size. Okay, so we covered scaling and the intelligence reports. The other modifier is a variance. Whereas the intelligence reports provide a modifier to every unit in the AI army, variance has a random chance to increase or decrease the size, experience, and/or weapons quality of each unit individually. One unit might get a size increase, another unit doesn't get anything, another unit gets better weapons, and another unit gets less experience but it gets a split. It is much more random in application than scaling or intelligence reports. Variance is also what allows units to split in the mod when not already forced by PandaCrowd. Variance is applied after scaling and the intelligence reports, but before you get to the core deployment screen where you can view AI unit details if your recon's high enough. The variance check for splits happens at the start of each phase for any unit that will deploy at some time during that phase. So is this all clear as mud now? I said that scaling is the only modifier that reacts to player decisions based on how you build your army, and that the other two modifiers are random and not determined by the player, and that's absolutely true. Most people know that you can go into the mod configuration files and adjust settings until they suit your level of playing ability. The normal modification is to change the AI scaling size multiplier and AI experience multiplier from 1 to something like 1.85, which would give them 15% less. Some players prefer to lower the maximum size of the AI units. You can also increase the configuration numbers to something higher if you need something more challenging before you move into the next difficulty level. There are several ways that you can make things a little bit easier as you are learning to adjust to a new difficulty level. With that in mind, you can take control of the intelligence reports that you get by re-rolling them if you need to. The reports are generated when a battle ends and you press OK on the final battle report and go back to camp. So if you save your battle in the final minutes, you can reload it, let the battle end again to regenerate the reports in camp until you get something that's acceptable. I certainly don't advocate using and abusing this mechanic, but some Union players just want or need that little bit of help to get them past Shiloh, and then they're good to go. And if the training percentages on the intelligence reports gets out of hand early, it will snowball the difficulty quickly. You can't stop the correspondence messages from appearing. What you can do is spread out the different types so the AI unit experience from training doesn't escalate quickly early in the early campaign. Only you know what you're comfortable with. You may also re-roll things to make it more difficult if you need more of a challenge before you bump up to the next level. That is all your call. You do you. So let's get this battle started. The core deploy screen is reporting 13,732 and 61 guns for the CSA versus my 11,625 and 40 guns. So it's pretty close to even compared to a lot of the other battles. The enemy numbers on this screen are fairly accurate, but will never be exact because they cannot account for unit splits that can happen after the battle starts. I'm going to start with Brewster and Wagner on the field because they are my best units and I need them to get the most kills to keep progressing to the second star. I'll also be placing Loomis with the rifled artillery guns, so I don't have to wait half the battle for him to get out here because all the other guns have horse perks. The very first thing I want to do is scout the lower left corner to see if the CSA Cav have spawned back there to intercept my reinforcements. If they're there, it's going to be apparent very quickly. I'm pulling this dedicated skirmishers down here to support and will detach my skirmishers to keep an eye out for any flanking CSA that might come in from the west or northwest. My cav will also head this way. The other dedicated skirmishers will head back towards the South Depot. If the CSA cav is present, they will cut off the retreat. Otherwise, they will end up in the South Depot. My allied infantry are 2 melee units and 3 accuracy units, and I need these guys to defend the North Depot alone for a bit if I need to deal with the CSA cav. I'm going to put the allied detached in the North Depot and then form a defensive line behind the depot with the rest of the allied infantry units. The only time I have trouble with this battle is if 2 things happen at the exact same time. One, that the CSA cav are in the southwest and my units get tied up engaging them. And while my units are tied up engaging them, the CSA infantry gets very aggressive and routs all of the allies out of the North Depot before I can get any guys over there to support them. So, if the CSA cav are in the southwest, and I have detached skirmishers in the North Depot, that will prevent the AI from charging for a bit. They're not going to win in a shootout, of course, but they can at least keep the AI from charging while I'm dealing with the cav and can get over there to support them. If the CSA cav are not in the southwest, then I'll adjust some of my strategy. We will know in just a few moments whether they're there or not. So there's Scott, who was spawned as a single melee unit. Whitehead shouldn't be far behind. Whitehead's also a single. Very good. Many people say this is the worst start you can get for Distress Call, and I completely disagree. This is the best start you can get. Why? Because every battle is easier when the AI cav is off the field. It means that my detached skirmishers and my cav are free to raise hell without having to worry about the AI cav just popping up and charging them. Of course, that assumes that I can get both of these here and that neither one of them escapes. My cav units have the melee perk, so if the CSA charges, they won't be worthless, though an accuracy perk would be better. I'm trying to get some better cover for the skirmishers here. I need to ensure that Whitehead doesn't get into any of my artillery as they come on the field. At distress call, you want to make sure that your artillery units are completely on the screen before you try to select them and give them directions. If you select them too early, you'll get this weird bug that you can see in this screenshot. And no matter where you click on the screen to try and move them, you'll get this blue arrow going along the edge of the map, and you'll lose them for the entire battle as they basically route off the field. They still show up in camp, so it's not like they're gone permanently, but we need them fighting and getting experience here. So I've used a trackball for over 20 years now, so sometimes it's a little tricky to get these guys to move along an exact path. detached are doing their job and keeping the AI infantry at bay while my guys are moving into support. Alright, Whitehead is done, so I can get guys moving to start flanking and maybe take out the artillery. I need to figure out where B, Bartow, and Evans are coming in from the east. I'm going to send some of my skirmishers up the left side to flank from there. There's always a chance that Law or Ransom decide to charge my infantry to the south of them, since they can't charge the detached that are in the depot. And if that happens before my artillery gets in place, things might get a little tricky. Once my smoothbores are there and unlimbered and loaded up, I'll be in great shape. So here comes Bartow rolling up. Evans is split. That should mean nobody is in the east woods, so I can move these skirmishers up to flank from the right. Barta was wavering, so if I can get Evans wavering too, I can use the Allied infantry to collapse this whole flank in a hurry, and maybe get a shot on the artillery batteries. Law is moving in because the detached are starting to melt, but as long as they have his attention, I can keep getting in some flanking shots. Alright, let's try to collapse this flank and see what happens. I'll have my skirmishers fire on the artillery while the charge is happening. And believe me, I would not be charging my core units here in front of this canister range, but I'm going to take a chance with the Allied units doing it. The Allies division commander's gone down. The skirmishers almost have the artillery routing. It's interesting that B isn't charging. That makes me think that maybe he's got an accuracy perk instead of a melee. Evans' other brigade is charging, but should be no problem. B isn't going to last very long. There's a nice canister blast into Evans there that stopped that charge. If Law wasn't trying to charge me through the depot, this might be a little bit more interesting since he's got double perks. Bartow has recovered enough morale to charge. Law has surrendered. I don't like Ransom getting shots in my cab. I'm going to gang up on Bartow because I'm betting his condition is low, since this is his second charge. Yep, Bartow was down to 43% condition. I need to deal with Evans, but I'm running out of healthy units. Fortunately, my smoothbore dropped his morale to wavering. Evans is surrendered. I need to start focusing on my core units getting their needed kills here. I want 600 each for Brewster and Wagner, and about 250 for all my green infantry units. need to let my allied units rest, but still do something about these artillery batteries on both sides of the battle. Normally, you should never charge with tired units, but Walker was right on the edge of routing, so I was fairly sure I could give him that last little nudge to make him rout. I need my camp and skirmishers to hurry up with the artillery before they get flanked. As far as I'm concerned, every supply wagon is my supply wagon. So let's go get my supply wagon. Daniel has decided to come down and play too, but he's going to be flanked from multiple directions, plus he's in artillery range. Brewster is at 350 kills, plus about 50 from his detached skirmishers. Wagner is at about 436, plus his detached skirmishers. So they're doing pretty well. There's still plenty of time to get more. Somebody's charging, but I don't know from where yet. Ransom is after Braxton. We should be fine based on how slow he's coming. The ground here is deceptively slow north of the depot. Wagner's over 600 kills now, even without counting the detached kills. Brewster's going to be cutting them pretty close. My rookies are both over 300 kills now, so they're looking pretty good. Alright, I had 75 killed, 223 wounded, and 37 missing. Almost 3,400 captured and over 6,000 kills, so it wasn't too bad. Wagner had 860, Brewster with 560, Lepian with 387, and Braxton with 360. All of my artillery are fine on kills. Walton won't have as many kills, so he won't have as much efficiency. But since he's firing faster, his firearms and stamina will help make up for some of that. The big thing here is 460 carbines to make my first cav unit without having to buy any weapons. That wraps up the stress call. Bull Run is up next. Thank you for watching.